What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball. We are finishing out the first weekend of March Madness. We are talking the Sunday 8-game slate of round 2. Before we get started, I want to thank anyone who's liked the video, subscribed to the channel, left a comment. It really helps a lot, and we've seen a lot of growth. We're now under 200 subs away from finally reaching the 1,000 mark. So if you've even just watched the videos, thank you. It does matter a lot to me, and it's a great way to support the channel for no money and low effort. I appreciate you. Thank you if you've done that. We are coming to you from Green Bay. If my setup looks a little different, spent yesterday at the casino, had a little bit of success. My friends are there now. Back to the beers. I survived, and hopefully we will survive again. But first, we have a very important Sunday slate to get into. Illinois takes on Kentucky. This game has a 1.5-point spread in favor of Illinois. The total in the game is 169.5. Injuries in the game, mainly on the Kentucky side, Jackson Robinson and Kirk Kriisa. And both these teams play at the speed of light. That's how you get a total of 169.5. We have two top 25 pace teams in this game. As far as resumes, Kentucky comes into this game ranked 17th. They went 7-5 against the top 25. A lot of really impressive wins, beat Duke, Gonzaga, Florida, Tennessee twice. Streaky, though. They also have losses outside the top 40 to Vandy and Texas. In the first round, they absolutely dismantled number 96 Troy. That number, when I say numbers, I'm referencing their power rankings, not their seed, not their AP ranking. We don't care about what the media thinks of these teams. We care about how they actually did. So Troy came in 96th overall. Kentucky annihilated them. Illinois went 4-8 against the top 25, beat Wisconsin, Missouri, Michigan, Purdue, lost outside the top 50 twice, but they did battle injury for a ton of the season. They just beat Xavier 86-73 in the first round. They out-rebounded them 45-25, crushed them on the glass. So good showing from Illinois. They don't need to shoot well when they're doing that. But outside of the incredible pace in this game, some other stylistics, Illinois is 15th in effective height, 7th in rebounding, making this a tough matchup for Kentucky, who's 41st in effective height and 69th on the glass. Illinois is 105th in effective field goal, 16th in two-point percent, 316th in three-point percent. They are 30th in three-point rate, which raises the question, if you're so bad at shooting threes, why are you taking so many? Well, they've decreased that a little bit of late. They're outside the top 50 in three-point rate. And this is important because if you want to beat Kentucky, the best place to do so is inside. 49th in total defense, but 289th inside. They've had no answer for this the entire season. So, yeah, we're looking at Ivisic, Morris Johnson. These are the matchups that Illinois wants to exploit if they're going to win this game. Kentucky, 21st in effective field goal percent, 33rd in two-point percent, 25th in three. Well-balanced team. But some of these metrics have dropped slightly. They lost their best shooter in Jackson Robinson. But Kobe Bryant is still awesome, 40% from three. He's above that. Illinois is 44th in total defense, 17th inside, 141st on the perimeter. So your best path to scoring if your Kentucky is shooting threes over the top, they're equipped to do so. Both teams never force any turnovers. Two turnover teams ranked 340th in turnovers forced. So you're not getting anything forcing turnover-wise, which means we should have some pretty clean possessions for these two teams. Foul margin does favor Illinois. Illinois is a little better free throw shooting, 55-119. So those are some micro wedges Illinois' direction. The best path to winning this game is Illinois just playing through their size inside against a banged-up Kentucky team. Lamont Butler's still not looking great out there, mainly just looking hesitant. I don't know if it's still the shoulder or what it is, but, I mean, that's what it probably is. We make this game 84.6 to 83 in favor of Illinois. I think that might even be a little light considering Kentucky's injury status, and that might not even be factoring in Lamont Butler enough. I played Illinois minus the 1.5, and I think that number is completely fine. It might even move. We're recording this over a day in advance. This is Saturday morning. We are making this video. Before we go, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Next up, Oregon, Arizona. Old Pac-12 matchup. Teams that know each other well from just a season ago. Oregon's a 4.5-point dog. Total's 153. No major injuries in this game, but another game with excellent pace. Oregon's 152nd, Arizona 54th. Not quite the breakneck pace of the previous game, but still very good. Oregon's 28th overall. They went 4-5 against the top 25. Another streaky team. Beat A&M, Bama, Wisconsin, Maryland. but lost to Minnesota and Nebraska. That Minnesota loss is to the number 87 team in the country. In round one, Oregon dismantled Liberty 81-52. That is because largely Liberty plays a tiny lineup, so Oregon could just play through their size in that game. It was kind of the same for Arizona. They dismantled the smallest team in the entire country, Akron, 93-65, who crazy that both of these former Pac-12 teams just played tiny teams in game one, and both of them have footers, 7-footers, that is. Outside of that game, Arizona's 14th overall in the country. They went 5-8 against the top 25, beat Texas Tech twice, Kansas, BYU, Iowa State off a half-court shot. But some holes you could poke. Darian Williams and Chance McMillan didn't play in one of the Tech games. Arizona also lost to West Virginia and Kansas State, so it's not all roses for this team. Outside of the pace, Oregon's 20th in effective height, but 110th in rebounding. That's largely Kwame Evans and Nate Biddle inside. Arizona is 131st in effective height, but 14th in rebounding. And they have depth. They have the ability to play a large lineup if they choose. Henry Visar's minutes, Carter Bryant's minutes fluctuate. If you play your footer, 7-footer that is, when I say footer, I'm speaking of 7-footers. When you play your 7-footer Henry Visar, you can neutralize some of the height advantages that maybe Oregon would have on paper. But Arizona's still been effective with the smaller lineup too, expecting this to favor the Wildcats or be close to a wash on the glass. Oregon's 107th in effective field goal percent, 106th inside, 2-point percent, 168th from three. Keyshawn Bartholomew, Jackson Shellstad, they're both hitting at least 38% of their threes. Arizona's 31st in total defense, 44th inside, 162nd from three. So your best path to winning this game is just shooting the ball straight over the top of this defense, which they can do. And honestly, we've been talking about the regression for some of these players like TJ Bamba for the entire season. I don't know if it's going to happen at some point. We're looking at a pretty long sample since TJ Bamba hit over 35% of his threes. He's below 30. But man, we know it's in there. And Arizona will let you do it. On the other side, the Wildcats are 82nd in effective field goal, 40th in 2-point percent, 286 in 3-point percent. A lot of these shooting metrics are drugged down just by the inefficient play of Caleb Love, 32% 3-point shooter on over 270 attempts. For as good as he looks in spurts, we can just confidently say a majority of the season has not been good for Caleb Love. Oregon's 37th in total defense, 139th inside, 62nd from three. They have multiple ways to score, but I think a lot of this just comes down to what is Caleb Love going to do overall, and I don't have the answer to that. If you play more Visar, I would have interest in Arizona, but I'm just not sure. Turnover margin, foul margin do not project to be major factors in this game. Two excellent free throw shooting teams. Arizona's top 20, Oregon's top 50, so not really any edges there. It just kind of comes down to, okay, does Oregon hit more threes than expected? And does Arizona rely on Caleb Love? Does that go positively or negatively? We make this very close to the projected -4. If you force me to take a side, it would be on the Oregon +4.5 that's widely available in the market. Not one I plan on taking just this moment, one I would rather wait and see where the market goes and potentially get a better number. To be honest with you, I'm not sure on that. Sometimes I have a better feel than others on where the market's going to go. This is a game I don't really have a strong feel. So we'll wait and see on it. We'll play it in Discord if it gets to a certain threshold one way or the other. We are projecting every game in Discord, sides, totals, props for every game as well. That's points, rebounds, assists, minutes, steals, blocks, you name it, it is there. If you're interested in that kind of thing, we have it available. $10 a week, $30 a month, no long-term commitments. Even if it's just for the Sweet 16 Elite 8, you can jump in for a short period of time. So check it out if you'd like to. And if you've supported, I thank you. It does mean a lot. St. Mary's takes on Alabama. This game has a 4.5-point spread as well, a 148.5 total. Only injury is Latrell Wrightsell's been out for a while. This game is a clash of styles. St. Mary's is 359th in tempo. Alabama is first. In the first round, St. Mary's cut a deficit. They were trailing to Vanderbilt by a decent amount, and they come back and win 59-56. They battled foul issues in the game, which isn't typically a problem for them. St. Mary's is 21st overall. They went 2-1 against the top 25. Every one of those games was against Gonzaga. Their second best win is against number 50, Nebraska. 4 losses outside the top 45-ish, Arizona State being the worst one. But a good body of work for St. Mary's, a team that just doesn't have as many opportunities for big-time wins. Alabama, they overcame a feisty Robert Morris, a number 15 seed. Robert Morris is number 133 overall. But one common thing I think that goes overlooked when you see these high seeds tested, I think you should ask, how much prep was Alabama doing for Robert Morris when you had St. Mary's on deck? I think the answer is probably not a lot. And clearly they weren't treating Robert Morris as a serious opponent. Grant Nelson was not supposed to play in this game, and he had to because Alabama let it get too close. But they end up with a good win, and here they are. They went 6-7 against the top 25, have some very good wins, beat Kentucky 3 times, Auburn, Houston. Their worst losses to number 28 Oregon in Vegas. So a phenomenal body of work. Just the optics were pretty bad for Alabama in their last game. Both teams are tall. St. Mary's is 44th in height. Alabama is 5th. St. Mary's is 1st in rebounding. Alabama is 21st. So first and foremost in this game, St. Mary's is rebounding against a much weaker level of competition. Alabama has the bodies to do this and potentially hold the advantage. I think at worst you could call this game a stalemate. At best, I might just give the edge to Alabama with Cliff Amore, Stevenson, etc. inside against St. Mary's, they're very big, and they have Harry Wessels coming off the bench over 7 feet. They're just not as deep as Alabama. From there, St. Mary's is not a good shooting team. They're reliant on this rebounding. 172nd in effective field goal, 145th in two-point percent, 232nd from 3. Alabama's 26th in total defense, weaker inside, but still very good defense overall. The biggest concern I have is that number 81 interior defense, because they just gave up 52 points to Robert Morris. Even without game planning, that's problematic. You can't be doing that. On the other side, Alabama's 11th in effective field goal percent, 3rd in two-point percent, 103rd in three-point percent. However, that has jumped to the top 30 since conference play. St. Mary's is 9th in total defense, 14th inside, 44th on the perimeter. So your best path is shooting over the top. Just cross your fingers. Hope that Mark Sears isn't going to take those logo threes, those heat checks he was trying to do against Robert Morris, because he, as well as he played in the final couple minutes, he was a large part of why that game was closer than it should have been. St. Mary's does have a turnover edge. Alabama's 156th in turnovers committed and only 347th in turnovers forced. Not a huge edge, but an edge nonetheless. Alabama's also in trouble on the fouls more often, but they are 36th in bench minutes. St. Mary's is 359th. Neither team shoots free throws well, so this is more just who's going to be on the court for you. St. Mary's got in foul trouble against Vandy, and they almost lost. If Alabama has anyone get in foul trouble, they're pulling off someone from the bench who's an elite player. We make this inside the 5.5 or 4.5 you can find. This is fluctuating a little bit. So at 4.5, I don't have a ton of interest, but if you can find a 5.5, which I'm still seeing a couple out there, I do think St. Mary's is worth playing. Alabama, I think, is a significantly better team, so I'm hesitating with sort of an IKB, I know better. Generally, that doesn't go well when I try to outsmart the model. But right now, mathematically, if you can find 5.5s, I think there is some merit to taking a St. Mary's side. I'm going to wait and see where this goes, but St. Mary's would be the lean if the number's 5.5. Next up, Ole Miss takes on Iowa State. This game is a 5-point spread in favor of the Cyclones, 146 total. Only injury is Keyshawn Gilbert. He's out for the tournament. Ole Miss just beat the hottest team in the country, I've been told, North Carolina. Held them to 20% from 3. And they still lost on the glass. That's a problem for Ole Miss. They were out-rebounded and still got the job done. That was a weird game. They were up by far more than the final score, 71-64, but they kind of let North Carolina crawl back. Obviously, the deficit was too wide for North Carolina to cut the deficit, but still, a streaky game from two streaky teams, but we get Ole Miss here. Iowa State, they had an absolutely crushing victory over Lipscomb. Not even close. Lipscomb had their backups in with 5 minutes left. 82-55, could have been worse. Resume-wise, Ole Miss went 4-7 against the top 25. Beat BYU, Bama, Kentucky, Tennessee. Good upper end, but they lost to Vandy and Memphis on the lower end. This is just an SEC resume. A lot of teams have this. Iowa State went 3-6 against the top 25. They've been hurt all season long. Momcilovic missed a month. Tamin Lipsy missed some time. Gilbert's obviously out now. So you could potentially elevate this team. The problem is they're not healthy now. So there's not really that many excuses you can make, and none moving forward. They did beat Arizona, Texas Tech, and Kansas. Also lost outside the top 50 to West Virginia, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. None of those games at full strength. Should have another win in the top 25, but Caleb Love hit that crazy half quarter sometime in January, I think it was. Maybe it was early February. Excuse me for not misremembering that. Pace in this game is pretty good, though. Ole Miss is 131st, Iowa State 107th. And from there, we have some stylistics, I think, that could be problematic for Ole Miss. It's largely just this team is tiny. They're 270th in effective height, 322nd in rebounding. Obviously, North Carolina couldn't exploit that, but they're not really a big team. They're playing Van Allen Lubin at the 5 and Jalen Withers. Iowa State's not doing that. Iowa State's 52nd in effective fight, 51st in rebounding. That's an immediate mismatch for Joshua Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, and Deshaun Jackson when he's in. So right away, you got an immediate advantage inside for Iowa State. From there, Ole Miss is just a streaky team. And part of that is Matthew Morrell and Dre Davis have regressed from 3. They're shooting 34%. But Jalen Murray and Sean Padula are hitting over 38. So when they're the players taking 3, sometimes you get good Ole Miss outcomes. They're 158th in effective field goal, 181st in 2-point percent, and 160th from 3. So that's going to come in streaks. Iowa State's the 8th total defense in the country. I guess the best path to scoring on them is from 3. They're 128th defending that area. But man, I mean, this defense is absolutely lights out. I think Keyshawn Gilbert will matter in more important games. But right now, I'm not sure that matters against a limited Ole Miss team. Iowa State is 50th in effective field goal, 46 and 2-point percent, 68th from 3. Curtis Jones, 37% 3-point shooter. Milan Momcilovic, 41%. Ole Miss is 34th in total defense, 210th inside, 111th from 3. So you could still shoot 3s over them. I just think Iowa State, if they want to make this game easy, probably just hammers Josh Jefferson inside. We'll see what they do. Both teams really force a lot of turnovers. Iowa State has more turnovers committed, so perhaps a micro edge for Ole Miss. But then I guess Ole Miss, they do foul more too. Iowa State is 59th in free throw percent. So you got another micro edge there in favor of Iowa State. Ole Miss on the turnovers, Iowa State on the fouls. But I will say the foul margin is wider than the turnover margin. In this game, we do make the spread about 4 points. So that would lean an Ole Miss +5 if you can find it. I do think those are pretty widely available right now. That's what I'm seeing on late Saturday morning. No real feel on the total for me. Probably an under or pass. But right now, there's a decent chance I end up with an Ole Miss ticket, whereas some of the other games like Oregon, not likely to play that game. Good chance I play Ole Miss on the +5. We were on Ole Miss against North Carolina and kind of on an island. Very few people seemingly were on that side. Colorado State takes on Maryland. This game is a 7-point spread in favor of the Terps, a 143 total, no major injuries. Colorado State knocked off Memphis without Tyrese Hunter. Weird game. Memphis only shot 26% from 3, and they shot a few of them, a fair amount actually, which I don't know what they're doing. Dane Danger was absolutely dismantling this team inside, but Memphis got away from it and they lost. On the other side, Maryland absolutely stomped Grand Canyon 81-49. Another game we were on. Colorado State comes in 43rd overall. They went 3-4 against the top 50. All 3 of those wins were against Boise State, who didn't make the tournament. They have a pair of losses outside the top 100 to UC Riverside and Washington. So pretty concerning body of work for me. And if it weren't for yesterday's Mountain West results, I think I'd be pretty much off this conference entirely. And honestly, that still might be the case because Maryland, they're 11th overall, 4-3 against the top 25, beat Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. Just a good body of work. Only questionable loss really is to Washington. They did lose to Northwestern, but that was one of the rare games when Northwestern still had Leach and Barnheiser. So I think you could poke a hole in that loss. I mean, that was full-strength Northwestern. This is kind of a clash of styles. Maryland's 53rd in pace. Colorado State, 237th. Colorado State is 238th in effective height, 67th in rebounding. They can rebound in the Mountain West. But as we've seen, we saw it last game. Like this team, although they can rebound in their conference, when they start playing better bigs, this is a problem. It was a problem against Dane Danger. Memphis just didn't have enough outside of that. Maryland probably does. They're 81st in effective height, 73rd in rebounding. But you're going against Derek Queen and Julian Reese. I mean, they're better than Dane Danger, and he was bodying this team. So I'm giving this edge starkly to Maryland, even if the numbers suggest it should be closer. Colorado State can shoot, though. 24th in effective field goal, 20th inside, 60th from 3. Neek Clifford, Jalen Crocker-Johnson, Kyan Evans, all hitting over 38% from 3. Evans was a flamethrower in their last game. Maryland's 5th in total defense, though. Number 5. 51st inside, 21st in the perimeter. Scoring against Memphis, it's a little bit of a different story compared to scoring against Maryland. And then on offense, Maryland 58th in effective field goal, 113th in 2-point percent, 26th in 3-point percent. Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel, both over 40%. Rodney Rice not far behind. Reese and Queen inside. Colorado State is 55th in total defense, 128th on the perimeter. I mean, they're going to have their hands full. That's without a doubt. Turnover margin significantly favors Maryland. Colorado State is 201st in turnovers committed, 212th in turnovers forced. Maryland's top 50 in both of those metrics. I'm playing Maryland. I'm playing them minus the 7 if I have to. The reason I didn't play this right now is I saw some quick money coming in on Colorado State. I don't know if this is a blip on the radar or if this is going to persist and we're going to get a 6.5 or a 6. I'm not sure. I'm playing Maryland. I don't know what number I'm going to play. I'm going to let this breathe for a second and see where the number settles and take the Terps. But we're going to wait and we're going to find out where the market goes. Note says lean on the screen. I'm going to play this. We're just going to see what number we can get. New Mexico takes on Michigan State. 7-point spread as well in favor of Sparty. 148 total. New Mexico just knocked off my Marquette team, beat them 75-66. It crushed Marquette on the glass, held them to 45% inside. Marquette just didn't have the horses. Michigan State let Bryant hang around for a little bit, but then they ended up crushing Bryant 87-62. I'm following my theory here. How much prep was Michigan State really doing against Bryant? I would argue that probably not a lot. New Mexico's 40th overall, 6-3 in the top 50. Obviously, now they picked off a win against Marquette. Previously, they had UCLA and VCU. So kind of the cream of the crop of the Mountain West. They lost to New Mexico State at 132 and San Jose State at 169, so not all roses. But Michigan State, far better resume. 7-2 against the top 25, and most of that coming of late. For those of you that really overvalue the recent sample, beat Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, some of them twice. Worst losses are all fairly respectable. Memphis, USC, and Indiana, so a good body of work. Good tempo in this game. New Mexico is third overall, fourth if you look at some other metrics. Michigan State is 139th. And right away, I think you're going to have edges Michigan State's direction via size. New Mexico plays with some. 34th in effective height, 57th in rebounding, but their 5-man is Nelly Jr. Joseph at 6'10". Michigan's third in rebounding, 21st in height. You just rarely find teams this big in the Mountain West. From there, New Mexico can't shoot. They have one of the worst shot charts I've ever seen. They take a lot of long two-point shots with Donovan Dent, who's awesome, but I mean, you're really just not maximizing what could be. He's a 40% three-point shooter, but he has under 50 attempts. Like, just Donovan Dent, take like 2 steps back, man. You'll have way more points. What are you doing? I don't know. It's hard to criticize a player who's like in the All-American conversation, but still. From there, I guess 176 in effective field goal percent, 196 in 2-point percent, 160th and 3-point percent aren't all that surprising considering the shots they take. And the problem is now you face Michigan State's 6th overall defense, 2nd from the perimeter. I mean, like, good luck. Michigan State is 151st in effective field goal, 85th from 2, 325th from 3. So they hold the overall edge in shooting. And they've experienced positive regression since they inserted Jace Richardson into the starting lineup. He's basically a 43% three-point shooter. Now he's playing 30-plus minutes, which it makes sense in hindsight. Like, I even criticize Izzo a little bit for his early season approach, playing that nasty rotation. But he's a freshman. Like, I get it. It's going to take him time, and it did. And it's benefited Michigan State. They're peaking at the right time. So props to Izzo. I was wrong. I apologize. Anyway, turnover margin does favor New Mexico slightly. They forced the 33rd most turnovers. Michigan State is 139th at turnovers committed. So nothing crazy. Both teams do force a lot of fouls. But then if you look at free throw percentage, Michigan State outranks New Mexico 20-307. I played an under in this game. It's mainly based on both defenses are pretty good, especially Sparty. And then both teams have severe problems shooting the ball. I'm more concerned with New Mexico than I am Michigan State based on the changes Michigan State has made. I've not been very successful with unders of late, but we're going to play this one. And there's a good chance I end up on a Sparty side of this as well. UConn takes on Florida, 9.5-point spread in favor of the Gators, 152 total. UConn just beat Oklahoma in a very close game. They won by 8. I am ashamed. I had Oklahoma +6. Oklahoma shot 17.5% from 3. I mean, that was their path, and they just didn't take it. North Carolina is outside the top 250 in three-point D, so we got the bad Oklahoma shooting game. They still almost covered. I almost view that as a positive, but Oklahoma predictably got annihilated on the glass. And then Florida, they absolutely dismantled Norfolk State. Again, how much prep was Florida really doing? This team basically had a 40-point lead and then let Norfolk cover by taking their foot off the gas. Don't read too much into that, really. Florida's an awesome team. They're third overall, 6-3 against the top 25, beat Tennessee twice, Auburn, Bama twice, Missouri. Only loss outside the top 25 was to Georgia in a game they had opportunities to win, missed their free throws. That's what happens. UConn went 1-2 against the top 25, only beat Gonzaga, lost a bunch of times outside the top 50, 5 times. Memphis, Colorado, Dayton, Villanova, Seton Hall, worst of all. Really questionable body of work for UConn. Clash of styles as well. They're 340th in pace, Florida 65th. UConn plays a tall lineup. They rebound well. They're 13th in rebounding. But I just am always going to say when you're playing Florida and you're like a rebounding team, a tall team, like, how are you going to take that and then play against Condon, Hanlockton, Chenyulu? Florida's 10th in rebounding, 36th in effective height, and they can play taller if they want to. They have 4 guys that are just massive inside. UConn's 27th in effective field goal percent, 16th from 2, 88th from 3. A lot of that's just solo ball, being a flamethrower, but Florida plays great defense, 13th overall, 10th inside, 7th on the perimeter. This is the toughest defense UConn's faced all year. Florida, 38th in effective field goal percent, and super balanced, 23rd inside. That's not surprising considering their personnel, but 92nd in three-point percent. Basically, all of their shooters, Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, all hitting about 36% from 3. So it's very balanced. UConn is 92nd in total defense, 15th defending the rim, 257th in three-point defense. Come on, Oklahoma. How did you not hit more than 17% of your threes? So anyway, you have the direct path via the weakness of UConn's defense defending the 3. But, I mean, even with a 15th ranked interior defense, you're telling me this unit's going to slow down that front court? I have a hard time buying it. UConn also very uncharacteristically bad with the ball this year. 174th in turnovers committed, 289th in turnovers forced. Hassan Diarra is playing with an injury. Aiden Mahaney just sucks. So, I mean, Florida has the peripheral advantage. They have the edge in foul margin. I'm having a real hard time not just laying 9.5 right away. We make this 10 on the dot. So I'm very likely to end up with a Florida ticket. I'm going to check this live on the stream, actually, because I wanted to just see where the line moved with this being we're recording early. It's parked at 9.5, man. If it stays here, I'm playing the 9.5. There's a lot of these games say lean. They're going to be played. Florida is one that is very likely to be played on the side of the Gators. Baylor takes on Duke, 12-point spread in favor of the Blue Devils. 143 total. This game fits the same mold. We'll talk about it. Injuries for both teams. Baylor's Josh Ojinwuna, their center's been out for over a month now. Malik Brown didn't play for Duke. I think he might return like deeper in the tournament. Not sure they need him now. Baylor, they had a very competitive game against Mississippi State. Maybe the best game of the first round. They ended up getting it done. They did go 2-10 in the top 25 this year, beat St. John's and Kansas. Lost to TCU, Colorado, and Cincinnati on the low end. But they're playing the number 1 team in the country. Duke went 3-3 in the top 25. That's because Louisville dropped out of the top 25 after their Creighton loss. Otherwise, they'd have a couple more. But Arizona, Auburn, and Illinois are the wins. They've only lost to Kentucky, Kansas, and Clemson, all top 25 teams. Not a clash of styles. It's just a slow game. Baylor's 314th. Duke is 250. How is Baylor going to defend this size, man? Like, Duke is 10th in effective height, 6th in rebounding. Go to their bench. Go just like Google Duke's roster. I mean, this team is enormous at guard, at center. Malawach is 7'2". You got depth. There's so many players. Baylor's 273rd in height, 100th in rebounding, and that's just because Norchad Omier is an absolute stud. He's undersized. Somehow he gets it done. But now you're going to put him against Flag and Malawach. I mean, like, what are we doing here? This could be egregious. Baylor is also having problems shooting. They got streaky in the first game, and they've been streaky throughout this year. There was a point in time where VJ Edscombe was hitting 47% of his threes. He's cooled significantly. But this team is 125th in three-point percent, 137th in overall effective field goal. Duke is 4th in the country in total defense, 3rd inside, 35th from 3. They're so long. How is Baylor going to score? Duke is just shooting lights out as well. They're 5th in effective field goal, 8th from 2, 19th from 3. Baylor has problems on defense. They're 58th overall, 128th inside, 275th defending the perimeter. I mean, like this, we make this inside the number. I strongly disagree with this. And I mean, like, I made the model. You're probably wondering, like, how does he disagree so much with the model? But part of the purpose of the model is I have a lot of biases, and I will openly admit that. Having something mathematical in your process to check your bias so you don't just blindly bet the same teams you really like makes some sense here. But if you're going to go against the model, you better have a good reason. And I mean, when you have some of the stylistics that are just this wide, I think it's really hard to account for mathematically. And this is one where I have a hard time not playing Duke. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't hit it yet because I think you might see some Baylor money come in. especially because I'm not alone in this. When you look at the 12-point spread, like Ken Palm's inside that. So it's not just me. I'm not the only one that's on an island with this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Baylor money. If it comes, Duke's going to be an auto hit. I'm going to play the Blue Devils, just not sure what capacity. Maybe it'll be a team total over. Maybe it'll be the spread. We're going to have something on the Blue Devils here. Just don't know how Baylor can really size up in this game against Duke. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you for watching. We will see you again soon. Good luck.